Good morning, everybody. Today's guest, I love today's guest. I really do. And I'm so happy that he agreed to do this because it means so much to me to talk to this fabulous person. He's a practicing attorney. From 2001 to 2009, he was appointed by George Pataki to Commissioner of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And in 2021, he won the election for County Executive of Nassau County. So let's welcome Bruce Blakeman to the Miller Report. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you so much.
So, Bruce, wow, you have quite the extensive career here. And now that the Republicans are in, what do you think? Are we going to be able to cross the aisle? What do you think?
Well, I'm just so delighted that President Donald J. Trump won re-election. We really need him. I mean, the country is upside down. We have so many problems, and already we're starting to see a sea change in the way that international leaders look at us, and for a much more positive view. And I think there's a better feeling among Americans that they're going to have safer communities, that the economy is going to get better, that we're going to have more jobs, and that we're going to deport all of the illegal migrants that came here during the Biden administration that were never vetted. We don't know who they are. There's over 200,000 lost children. I mean, that's horrible. And I think he's the right guy for the job. I think he's going to go down as one of the best presidents.
You know, I feel it in New York. I feel the energy is better, unlike what Sid says every morning that New York is not. I feel it's better. I feel that the feeling in New York is better. The offices are full, and it just seems like it's going to be a better feel. All the cities, I think we're really on an upswing. That's my take. And I want to talk to you about a lot of things, particularly what's happening in Nassau County and the economy and immigration. So let's just take it from the top. Do you think that this new immigration bill do you think he's going to do a new bill, or you think he's going to just have executive orders?
Well, I think he's going to do both. I think he's going to do an executive order right away so we get started with the process. And then, of course, he'll ask the House of Representatives and the Senate to pass legislation. And I think that, we have to take a common sense approach. First of all, we need to deport those who came here during the Biden administration. That's very clear. We have to find out where these children are. Then we have to have a guest worker program so that people can come in and immigrate into the United States legally. We need some of those people here. We've always been a nation of immigration, and we're not anti-immigration, and President Trump is not anti-immigration.
It's legal immigration.
So, again, I just feel that with the immigrant situation finally being resolved, putting that wall back up, those are important things that President Trump will accomplish immediately. He'll start with executive orders, and then he'll seek legislation to.
So Bruce, practically speaking, everybody says they're going to send everybody back. I know they'll send anybody that's been a criminal back. It's easy to find somebody after they commit a crime. Then you can send them back. But how practically are they going to send back all of these people?
Well, I think that it is practical, but they have to have a plan, and I think President Trump will have a plan. I think that the people that he's putting around him are very serious about homeland security. They're serious about securing our borders. And they know that we just can't let 10 million people run rampant.
Give me an example. How can they how will they be able to, they're going to put police officers on the streets? They're going to round people up. What do you think that he's actually going to do to find these people that are here illegally?
I think we're going to find them, and then we're going to tell them that they have to appear in
How?
They won't appear in court. Then they will be rounded up, and then they'll be deported.
How?
How? I'm not part of the planning, but if it were up to me, I would form a joint task force with our federal partners and our local and state police officers. And what we would do is we would have a program to identify these individuals. We would have them processed, and then we would deport them either by rail, by bus, by airplane, or by ship, and send them back to where they came from. And, it may seem impractical, but we've done much bigger things. We built the Panama Canal. We prosecuted 2 world wars. This country is capable of great things. This isn't something that that it's possible. It's very possible. It just requires political will. And President Trump has that political will. And I have told President Trump personally, as I've said publicly, that the Nassau County Police Department will cooperate with ICE, with the Department of Homeland Security, with border control agents, and we will help in the process because we are firmly behind the idea of the rule of law, that you have to come into this country legally, you have to be vetted, and if you have a criminal background either here or in the country that you came from, you have to be either deported or incarcerated. It's that simple.
I think you're doing a phenomenal job in Nassau County, and I'm going to get into that. But everybody needs to follow your lead because you've done an amazing job. So I have family there, and I really honor that. Let's move on to Ukraine. Do you think that we are properly supporting Ukraine? How do you see it going forward with President Trump coming in?
Well, I think that if President Trump had been president, Vladimir Putin never would have invaded the Ukraine because he knew the consequences would be very, very dire. I think that when you look at the situation in Ukraine right now and in Russia, I think we're at a point now where both sides are war weary. And I think that this is a time that's ripe for a settlement of this war. And I think that Donald J. Trump will be active in trying to settle the war. I don't know whether it involves land. I don't know whether it involves political commitments, such as the Ukraine not joining NATO. There's a lot on the table there for the president, but I believe that with strength, and President Trump has demonstrated that strength, I think we'll be able to help resolve that war. It doesn't do anybody any good to see a war break out like it has in the Ukraine. It's completely the fault of the Biden administration. They were weak. There were no consequences. And I think that basically the time is right for a settlement of the issue.
What about all those people that lost their families and the soldiers that worked so hard? They're just going to give up? I mean, if you were Donald J. Trump, how would you solve this?
Well, I think there needs to be a political solution, and I think that's going to involve negotiation. It may involve sanctions, but it's not healthy for the world for this war to go on. And I think it's bad for Russia. I think it's bad for the Ukraine. I think it's bad for world peace. And I think we're at a point now where both sides are war weary. And I think that that's a good opportunity for America to help them come to the table and resolve this conflict.
Let's move on to Israel. I know I'm going in a lot of different directions, but you're an expert in so much of this. Now that President Trump won, when are the hostages coming home? Do you think, I mean, him saying it's hell or fury if they don't, what's your thoughts on that, and will it actually happen?
Well, if I were Iran, I would take Donald J. Trump at his word. I think that he's very serious about the return of the hostages. Here in Nassau County, we're very sad to hear a couple of weeks ago that someone that we prayed for every day, Omer Nutra, was confirmed dead. So unfortunately for Nassau County, we don't have Omer. And I've tried to console his parents, but as you can imagine, you're inconsolable when you lose a child. So our hearts go out to him. But I take Donald J. Trump at his word. And if I were Iran, I would do that.
You think it's going to happen, Bruce?
It's going to be imposed. And I think that President Trump hasn't taken military options off the table. He's, as he said in his press conference the other day, he's not going to reveal what he's going to do. Right. That would be foolish. Right. And certainly Donald J. Trump is no fool.
If you were a betting man, you think they're going to come back before he takes office?
If I were a betting person, I would think that it is going to be resolved very quickly, or when Donald J. Trump takes office, there will be serious consequences for Iran, as there should be.
Okay. What about Syria? How do you think Syria affects this mess?
Well, I think basically what you have in Syria is a lot of warring parties, and there is a vacuum now that Assad is no longer in power. And I think it's a good vacuum. I think this is a chance for the people of Syria to make a decision once and for all, whether they want to live in peace or whether they want to continue a state of civil war. I think Israel was very smart to come in during that vacuum and attack military targets, to take the Syrian military out, because as we've seen, they've been very hostile towards America and towards Israel. So we don't want to give any rebels or any terrorists the ability to prosecute terrorism or a war against Israel or the United States or any of our allies. So I think that Israel was very smart to fill that vacuum by trying to destroy as much of the Syrian military apparatus as possible. And I think that, there has to be a time in the Middle East where some of these warring parties have to make a decision. What's more important? Hospitals, schools, infrastructure, the future of their children, or a perpetual state of war, as there are with many countries in the Middle East? It's a very troubling situation, but only the people that live there have the power to make their lives better and their children's and grandchildren's lives better. And so far, they haven't chosen that. So it's a very distressing situation. And
what about Saudi Arabia?
I'm hopeful that things will get better, but it's up to the people to decide whether they want a future of peace and prosperity for their kids, or whether they want a perpetual state of war against Israel and the United States of America.
Bruce, what about Saudi Arabia? Do you think we're going to go back to the Abraham Accords now?
I'm very happy. I'm very hopeful that that Saudi Arabia will enter the Abraham Accords. Obviously, there's no guarantees, but I think the prospects are good for that, because I think it makes a lot of sense. The Saudis can't continue to fight a war for Palestinians who don't want peace, who don't want prosperity, who don't want their kids to be educated, who don't want their kids to have better lives. They just want to be in a perpetual state of war against Israel and the United States of America. And I think basically Saudi Arabia has to move on, like some of the other countries in the Middle East. The Palestinians haven't demonstrated over the last 40 years that they have any inclination to live in peace with Israel. Their chants of, death to Israel, death to America, from the river to the sea.
Burning flags on marches.
Yeah, exactly. It's, it's a situation where we have to stop catering to the Palestinians. We have to stop funding them. They've demonstrated no desire to make the lives of their kids better and their future better. Rather than spend money on hospitals and schools and needed infrastructure and utilities, they choose to build tunnels and to build bombs. And, I think we've got to move past the Palestinian issue. It's not going to resolve until the Palestinian people decide that they want to live in peace.
So now we can move back to the United States, which you have been a tremendous help in so much. Thank you for attending Columbia's rally. When people were running away, you ran to it. And I've watched the things that you've done. And one of the things that I appreciate, I probably shouldn't show aside, but this whole bail reform, I know you're opposed to it. And you do not cater to this. Can you be specific about your thoughts about bail reform and what you would do if you were the mayor of the city?
I think the best way to explain it to people is it's a revolving door of justice where there are no consequences for people who commit crimes. And I'll give you one example. Our police department, working in conjunction with NYPD, the FBI, and the Suffolk County Police Department and the Westchester County Police Department, we captured a burglary ring of Venezuelans and Chileans. And they were operating with impunity throughout the metropolitan area. And through good detective work, we apprehended them. They were brought before a judge. The judge's hands were tied, had to release these individuals. Some of them put on the electronic monitor, and 2 hours later, they cut them off and they were gone. They've disappeared. I mean, this is bizarre. People committing crimes and taking away from judges their responsibility and obligation to make a determination whether an individual that's brought before them is either a flight risk or a danger to the community. And it's a violation of the separation of powers. Judges have always had that power. And here in New York State, our woke progressive legislature took that power away from judges. And now there are no consequences for people who commit crimes. It's bizarre. Criminals have more rights in New York State than victims, and it's got to end.
It's got to end. How do you specifically change it? What would you do now?
Well, we need to change who are our elected officials in Albany. And that starts with the governor and the attorney general and the members of the legislature who have forced these stupid policies down the throats of our communities. And we've seen in the last election that people have had enough of this. They don't want any more of lawlessness. They don't want people walking into a CVS and taking whatever they want and walking out without consequences. It's anarchy that they've created in New York State. And I think that we need to be very, very serious about restoring law and order. And I'll tell you something, in Nassau County, it's a totally different type of
I know.
atmosphere.
You took off the masks. You can't protest. Everybody talks about you. You're famous for that. You cannot protest. If you have a religious reason, yes. You cannot commit a crime and hide behind a mask. And you stop that. And why don't you come to New York?
Yeah, so listen, I made a decision that was just common sense, that there is no reason someone should be wearing a mask in public unless, of course, they have a health condition or there is a religious purpose. So if you're wearing a mask and you don't have a health condition and it's not for a religious purpose, you're probably up to no good. So our police now have a right to stop those people and question them and make a determination as to whether or not they may be involved in criminal activity. And I think it's just common sense. I'm happy that my legislature here in Nassau County supported it. As a matter of fact, Legislator Mazi Pilip was the sponsor of the legislation. She's the one that initiated it, so I congratulate her. But we were just voted the safest county in America by U.S. News and World Report. The safest
Great
county
job.
in America.
Great job. Are you watching the Daniel Penny case? What's your thoughts on that? I mean, how did we even get there?
Well, I was the first public official to hold a rally and a press conference for Daniel Penny. The professional thugs from Antifa and the Communist Party attacked us at that press conference in New York City. I stand behind Daniel Penny for a lot of different reasons, but I'll give you some of the most important. Number one, Nassau County sends at least 60,000 people into New York City every day on the railroad, and they use the subways. And Daniel Penny was a hero for what he did. Not a villain, he was a hero. So that's number one. Number two, I come from a Marine family. My son served 5 years in the Marine Corps, and the Marines don't leave their wounded on the battlefield. And I thought that what they were doing to Daniel Penny was absolutely horrendous, and I think it was the wrong thing to do. And three, I wanted to set the tone that we're not going to tolerate using political purposes for the prosecution of individuals, which the Democrats have seemed to done up to an art form in the prosecution of Donald Trump and Daniel Penny and others. The bodega owner in the Bronx, who was just protecting himself and his store, they prosecuted him instead of his attacker. It's crazy what's going on. It needs to change. And I don't care what anybody says. I'm always going to stand up for what I think is right. And Daniel Penny was right. And we want good Samaritans on the subways.
Yes, if it was your daughter, you'd want a man like Daniel Penny to help you. So I've been watching that, and thank you for that. But let's talk about the housing crisis in New York. Everybody knows we need to clean up New York. We get it. We have so many immigrants here. Do you think it's fair that New York the city is taking the brunt of these immigrants, and what do we do about that?
Well, listen, I've said to everybody that this migrant policy is absolutely crazy. And on my first week in office as county executive, I declared that Nassau County is not a sanctuary county. We will not participate in any migrant program, and we haven't. And therefore, we don't have the homelessness and we don't have the crime that the rest of the metropolitan area has. And it is crazy. The state of New York is spending, in their last budget, $2.4 billion on migrants. When we need money for hospitals, we need money for schools, we need money for infrastructure, and we're spending it on people who are here illegally and they've been in this country for 15 minutes. What about the people that live in our communities? And you know where they really despise this the most? In African American and Hispanic and Latino and Asian communities, because they feel they're getting shortchanged, and they are. It's wrong. Now Mayor Adams has realized that this is destroying his city and that it's bankrupting his city. And I'm glad to see that he's finally coming over to our side and realizing that this is something that is absolutely insane and it needs to stop.
I think that you're right, and I'm congratulate the mayor. I think it should have been done earlier, but hopefully we're on the right trajectory now, because before, when he spoke up, we saw what happened. So maybe we're onto something now. Let's move on to just two more things. In 2022, you proposed a budget which kept tax rates the same and added 100 more law enforcements to Nassau County. That's amazing. How do we do that here?
Well, let me supplement that by bringing you up to date. Last 2 years, I hired 200 new police officers, and last night, I hired 91 more. We had a graduation of our police academy along with deputy sheriffs and village police officers. And I believe in funding the police, not defunding them, especially now when with these crazy laws in Albany, it's made the job of being a police officer so much more dangerous and so much more difficult. I love the men and women of blue. They do an amazing job. They're committed, but they're getting frustrated. And it's disheartening when they solve crimes and then they see that these individuals, they go to court and they're released without any consequences. So we have to keep their morale up and let them know that they're doing a tremendous job. I speak to NYPD officers all the time. We have a lot of them that live here in Nassau County. They're really frustrated and they're disheartened. They want
and they don't have
leadership.
housing. They don't make money. How do we? Do you think it's possible to reform them and make them appreciate police officers more in New York right now? How would you do it in Manhattan?
Well, I think it's starting to change. I think if you look at the numbers that Donald J. Trump got in New York State, those were good numbers compared to other races of other presidential candidates. And I think that if the Trump administration, or the Trump campaign, I should say, had the money to divert from some of the swing states to New York State, I think he had a reasonable chance of winning the state. But I understand that the swing states were an imperative for him. And I predicted that he would have a landslide. I even told him on the day of the election, it's going to be 312, and it was 312. Because I follow these things.
I think you got him to the rallies. It was you who organized that. I saw you go with him to the rally. The Nassau rally at Madison Square Garden. That was you, right?
Well, we hosted one at Nassau Coliseum for him. So we hosted a rally for President Trump at Nassau Coliseum. The custodian there told me, who had been there for like 30 years, that the crowd was louder for Donald Trump at Nassau Coliseum than it was for any of the game sevens of the Islander playoff games. He said he never heard it so loud there. And then I went with him to the South Bronx, which I thought was a very smart move on his part, because Hispanic Americans really, really like Donald Trump. And then I went with him to Madison Square Garden for the rally there. So
you're the man.
The fact that, well, it's not me, it's him. He's got the courage to go to places where he's told not to go by so-called political pundits, because he wants to get his message out. And the best way to do it is to go to communities that haven't been told the truth. The formal permanent media has lied to the public. They don't give Donald J. Trump or the Republican Party an opportunity to explain their positions. And when we go out to those communities and explain it to them, they say, you know what, you're right. What have we got to lose? Things have not been good under the Democrats. So what do we got to lose? Let's give the Republicans a try. And more people are saying that.
So, Bruce, this is a federal issue. He won on how will Donald Trump help New York from Washington?
Well, first of all, sealing our borders will be a big help. So I know he's going to do that. And then second of all, Donald Trump's a builder, and we need to rebuild our infrastructure throughout the United States. Here in Nassau County, we have an aging infrastructure because basically most of our infrastructure was built right after World War II with the baby boomers and the migration to Nassau County with all those veterans. I think at one point we had probably more veterans in Nassau County than any county in the United States, and we still have a large veteran community. We love them. They're the backbone of our community, and we have a very patriotic county, but we need to rebuild our infrastructure. So Donald Trump's a builder. I think he's going to help rebuild our infrastructure, rebuild our economy.
In New York, I'm asking about New York and the crime and the justice system and bail reform. How can he do this from Washington?
Well, he's going to lead by example, and people are going to see that when he makes things better federally, that we can do the same thing on the state level and on the local level. And I think once he demonstrates to everybody that it can be done, I think that independent voters are overwhelmingly going to vote our way. And I think there's a lot of Democrats out there, a lot of my friends who consider themselves common sense Democrats, who are going to demand that their party change, or they're going to come to the Republican Party. I'm seeing it all over the place. They have a tremendous erosion of power. Think about 312 electoral votes for Donald Trump, winning by a large margin the popular vote. This was a landslide, but it was not only his personality, but his positions, his issues. People agree with him, and I think that that will be translated over to state and local government as well.
Last question, back to New York. I also know that you're running, and I'm going to endorse that. We're going to end with that. But let's talk about the upcoming mayoral election here. Who do you think has got a chance? Who's coming in? Is it going to be Adams? What's your guess on that?
I really don't know. Mayor Adams hasn't said that he's running for reelection, and there are a number of individuals that have indicated that they might. John Catsimatidis, a great guy, a philanthropist.
He's not running.
Has a big oil and gas company, a major media outlet. He's not running. Did he say he's not running?
He's only going to run if we desperately recruit him. But he's a little busy. What about Andrew Cuomo?
Well, there's rumors that he may be looking at the mayoral race. So he's looking at it. Richie Torres has indicated that he was looking at the mayoral race. And then, you got some crazy people like AOC that may want to run for mayor. And I think that would be a disaster for New York City if she was ever elected.
Anybody you support?
Well, I haven't seen the Republicans yet that have come out. But, if Nicole Malliotakis wanted to make a run for mayor, I would certainly be very enthusiastic about that. John Catsimatidis, I would be very enthusiastic about that. We got a lot of great people here, but of course, the registration is so much in favor of the Democrats that it would almost have to be a perfect storm, like it was with Rudy Giuliani when he became president. So
we do need that.
We just have to wait and see who surfaces and how bad things get. If things get really bad, then a Republican has a real chance to win.
We want a common sense Democrat. Don't bet against New York. Let's talk about your upcoming election. Tell our audience when is the election, and we know you're going to win. So just let's hear it.
Well, I never take that for granted. I don't think you can ever.
You're very well liked.
The electorate. Yeah, but I don't take anything for granted. I have to work hard. I can't rest on my laurels, and I've got to keep improving things here. If you become stale or you become overly confident, that's when you open the door to defeat, and I don't want to do that. And it's not in my DNA. I'm a hard worker. I like to work hard, and I love people, and I love this county, and I want to continue to make it a better and better place. We've got a lot of work to do. So I don't take anything for granted. I'm going to run very hard, and God willing, the people will recognize that I care about them and that I work hard and that I've made the right decisions, and they'll reelect me.
You've done a phenomenal job. I want to endorse you on the Miller Report. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for this conversation. I look forward to meeting you personally, and keep up the great work because you've done great things.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. God bless you, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Bruce.